On August 1st, 1966, in Austin, Texas, Charles Whitman, a former Marine and student, climbed to the top of the University of Texas Tower and began shooting at students below. It was a nightmare.
KTBC Television News now presents a special program on today's mass murder in the capital city. Here is KTBC Television News Editor Neil Spells.
Good evening. One of history's worst mass murders occurred here in Austin today. By official count tonight, 49 persons were hit by gunfire. There are 16 dead and 33 injured. It started last night when a man reportedly killed his wife and his mother. That same man apparently rounded up an arsenal and supplies this morning and then went to the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower. It was then that terror rained down from the tower.
A rampage that lasted 96 minutes, with people running for their lives and at some points scared to even move.
One of those who is out of breath now after running out onto the mall rescuing those who've been shot is Brian Ellison of Austin, who has been in Vietnam, has been back for 2 years. Brian, how many have you gone out to rescue?
Today, 2.
What did you have to do?
Run hard and keep low.
Run hard and keep low, a survival technique used 58 years ago. It was the first major mass shooting at a U.S. school in our history. 16 dead, more than 30 injured. It was the beginning of a decades-long national fear that would terrorize the nation, sending your kids to school in the fear of them never returning. A problem that only happens here in America. Little kids shot dead while learning, students running for their lives in the halls, usually filled with laughter and conversation, teachers acting as human shields to protect such young, innocent lives. This is a TJPS production, a special report, Shattered Safety, the reality of school shootings in America.
27 dead.
There's one child that's been shot.
That child shot 6-year-old Jacob Hall.
Oh my God!
I was playing dead, so he won't shoot me.
In a little over 6 minutes, 17 of our friends were taken from us.
Good afternoon. This is News 2, and we are following a breaking story today, a shooting at a high school in Littleton, Colorado, that's near Denver. Here is what we know so far. Witnesses say 2 gunmen dressed in black trench coats with black masks opened fire at Columbine High School.
The shooting began around 11:19 a.m., with students Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold initially targeting students outside the school before moving inside the cafeteria. As they roamed the hallways and library, they shot indiscriminately at students, teachers, and faculty. And they weren't just armed with guns. They brought homemade bombs intended to cause mass casualty. Although the bombs didn't go off, there was still an intense standoff with law enforcement.
As the crisis unfolded, the images often outran the information. For much of the day, more questions than answers.
We really don't know how many suspects. We do feel like we're dealing with certainly more than one.
The police officer tells me they aren't sure if there are any more injuries because they really don't know what's going on inside the school.
There was mass panic, and apparently the gunman then moved into the library.
I have heard shots. We took cover behind our patrol vehicles, and it sounded like heavy shots, as in a long rifle or some kind of an automatic weapon.
We understand that there were at least 2 explosions earlier on.
Have you heard from any of your friends? Did all your friends get out okay?
I have no idea. I haven't heard from a single one. Black masks, black trench coats, and needless to say, I was very frightened. I saw some students running, and I felt lucky that I got away as fast as I did, and I thank the Lord that I got to hide where I did and they did not see me and blow me away subsequently.
As the situation on the ground intensified, parents swarmed the area, running and driving to the school to see if their babies were okay. President Bill Clinton made a statement from D.C. at the White House.
I want to begin by saying that Hillary and I are profoundly shocked and saddened by the tragedy today in Littleton, where 2 students opened fire on their classmates before apparently turning their guns on themselves.
After the massacre at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, the debate over gun control rang loud and clear. In fact, even the NRA, the National Rifle Association, one of the largest gun lobbying corporations in the nation, considered scaling back or canceling their huge convention over the fear of the juxtaposition of holding a huge pro-gun convention in Colorado 10 miles from the murder site, where kids and teachers were killed.
At the same period where they're going to be burying these children, we're going to be having media within 10 miles of our convention center, the world's media, trying to run through the exhibit hall looking at kids fondling firearms, which is going to be a horrible, horrible, horrible juxtaposition.
Ultimately, the NRA did hold their convention, but it was met with vociferous pushback, because even though they scaled it back, it still didn't matter. They were still promoting this big pro-gun message. And what does that mean? What does that say to the victims of the families who have just lost their children? That, hey, yes, we know this happened, but we're still going to hold a big pro-gun convention because guns are great in America. Hey, everybody, you should get one. And they did not just do this in Denver, Colorado, just miles away from Littleton where the Columbine massacre transpired. They carried this in their debate to really not hold themselves accountable and to promote lobbying congressional officials into not getting on board with legislation either to do something about gun violence in American schools.
We must not let tragedy lay waste to the most rare and hard-won human right in history. We will not relinquish it, or be silenced about it, or be told, do not come here, you are unwelcome in your own land.
One of the worst mass shootings in America since Texas in 1966, and this is the NRA leader effectively saying, hey, we can do whatever we want. We reserve the right to keep our guns. This is our country. This is our territory. Frankly, we don't care if there was a high school shooting. We are going to stay here. And this is essentially the beginning of how gun lobbying in America prevents gun reform from ever taking place, because they lobby Republican politicians not to do anything. This is our report. The NRA is the most powerful lobbying group in America, and if you're wondering why nothing's been done on gun reform, it's because majority, if not all Republicans, are in their pockets.
I believe in Jesus, guns, and babies.
It wasn't designed for hunting. This is designed to kill people.
Democrats like to say that no one needs an AR-15 for self-defense, that no one could possibly need all 30 rounds.
My father taught me how to handle my first gun. I taught my son Oliver how to do the same. I've been shooting and hunting my whole life. So when people say I won't support guns, they're dead wrong. Pull!
But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen angry Democrats in Klan hoods, you just might need that semi-automatic.
After the 1999 Columbine High School shooting, there was anger and major demands for something to change. Here's what was in President Bill Clinton's proposal. Tougher background checks, especially at gun shows, a ban on the importation of high-capacity ammunition clips, and increased funding for school safety measures to protect students. Clinton also worked with Attorney General Janet Reno to explore federal actions that could be taken to reduce gun violence. He sought to rally public support for new gun laws that would make it harder for criminals and mentally unstable individuals to get weapons. And while there was widespread public support for stronger gun laws on an issue that should galvanize everyone, Congress was deeply divided on the issue. In 1999, the Senate narrowly passed the bill, which had several measures, including mandatory background checks at gun shows, a ban on juvenile possession on semi-automatic assault rifles, and a federal requirement for trigger locks to be sold with handguns. It went through the Senate, but then came stiff and persistent resistance in the House of Representatives, with the NRA and other gun rights advocates opposed to new gun regulations, arguing that it infringes on our Second Amendment rights and they're just trying to take away our guns. The Democratic leadership decided they had enough.
We are here today, this morning, to call upon the Republican Congress to take immediate action to reduce gun violence that threatens American families. More than 6 months ago, the tragic shooting at Columbine High School spurred the United States Senate to pass bipartisan common sense gun safety legislation. It took a tie-breaking vote from Vice President Gore to save sensible gun safety reform that day. And today, he is back to help carry us over the finish line and to pass gun safety for the American people.
Despite pushback from Democrats, House Republicans remained unmoved and still did not act. Here's President Bill Clinton applauding the Senate for passing gun reform legislation and slamming House Republicans lobbied by the NRA to do nothing.
Soon after the Columbine tragedy, Congress considered common sense gun legislation to require Brady background checks at the gun shows, child safety locks for new handguns, and a ban on the importation of large capacity ammunition clips. With courage and a tie-breaking vote for the Vice President, the Senate faced down the gun lobby, stood up to the American people, and passed this legislation. But the House failed to follow suit. Now, we have all seen what happens when guns fall into the wrong hands. Daniel Mauser was only 15 years old when he was gunned down at Columbine. He was an amazing kid, straight A student, a good skier. Like all parents who lose their children, his father Tom has borne unimaginable grief. Somehow he has found the strength to honor his son by transforming his grief into action. Earlier this month, he took a leave of absence from his job to fight for tougher gun safety laws. I pray that his courage and wisdom will at long last move this Congress to make common sense gun legislation the very next order of business. And Tom Mauser, stand up. We thank you for being here tonight. Tom.
Even with President Bill Clinton's appeal to their humanity, House Republicans ended up killing that bill. It was defeated in the House of Representatives. The NRA had won, but it would only be a matter of time before such evil would happen again in the United States of America, absolutely crushing our souls once again.
We are live here on the campus of Virginia Tech, the location of the deadliest shooting in U.S. history. 33 dead, 29 wounded, 15 still in the hospital tonight.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Rebecca Jarvis with the latest on the deadly shooting at an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut, the Sandy Hook School, and it is turning out to be worse than anyone could have imagined.
This morning, the Sandy Hook Elementary School was full of kids concerned about Christmas. And then at 9:40 a.m., shots rang out.
All units, the individual that I have on the phone is continuing to hear what he believes to be gun.
Inside, little kids are under attack.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here. Sandy Hook School.
Okay, what makes you think that?
Because somebody's got a gun. I saw a glimpse of somebody. They're running down the hallway.
Okay.
They're still running. They're still shooting. Sandy Hook School, please.
So I wanted to come on here and pause for a second and just talk about how hard it is to make this report, specifically because I kind of vaguely remember Sandy Hook. I remember being in kindergarten, and I believe I remember being pulled out of school by my mom, and she tried to convey to me why I was pulled out of school, because I went to the barbershop, of course, and she tried to convey to me what exactly had happened, but I didn't quite understand. I was in kindergarten at the time, of course, and now being older and even just, a couple of years back, realizing the fact that 20 little kids were murdered and 7 adults before Christmas. I mean, it's completely inconceivable, but it's also extremely, extremely heartbreaking. It was a moment that really broke our country to pieces. Little babies just murdered in an elementary school. In elementary school. This is someone that walked into an elementary school, saw little children, and killed them.
This afternoon, I spoke with Governor Malloy and FBI Director Mueller. I offered Governor Malloy my condolences on behalf of the nation and made it clear he will have every single resource that he needs to investigate this heinous crime, care for the victims, counsel their families. We've endured too many of these tragedies in the past few years, and each time I learn the news, I react not as a president, but as anybody else would, as a parent. And that was especially true today. I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dreams. So our hearts are broken today for the parents and grandparents, sisters and brothers of these little children, and for the families of the adults who were lost.
President Obama went on to deliver more emotional speeches across the country and urging Congress to act, bring immediate gun reform legislation down, put an end to this, stop it from happening.
Last night, the president said we cannot tolerate what is happening, and today a chorus of surprising voices joined a call for change. Here's ABC's Jake Tapper.
Standing before the devastated families of Sandy Hook last night, the president pledged action to prevent more tragedies, to save future children.
Because what choice do we have? Are we prepared to say that such violence visited on our children year after year after year is somehow the price of our freedom?
For the couple hundred people who marched from Capitol Hill to the local offices of the National Rifle Association today, and for New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg standing with victims of gun violence, there is one issue to confront: access to guns.
This is just ridiculous. This is an outrage. We are killing each other.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin and Republican Senator Pat Toomey came up with a bipartisan bill to expand background checks and close loopholes that allows people to get guns. Even though it did not include the limits on high-capacity magazines and a reinstatement of the 1994 assault weapons ban, President Obama approved.
We have an agreement.
A plan to expand background checks seemed all but dead until Senator Toomey, a Republican, stepped forward to negotiate.
A bipartisan deal to expand background checks for commercial gun purchases. Senators, I'll let you decide who goes first to answer this question. You guys faced a bit of opposition on this from the get-go, not just from the NRA, but from people like Tom Coburn. Do you have 60 votes?
That 60-vote threshold would be absolutely critical in the bill's success. But President Obama would not wait to get to work. He signed multiple executive orders to improve the enforcement of existing gun laws, bolstered the mental health care system in this country, and enhanced the federal background check system through better federal data sharing. The president also sought more funding for gun violence research, which had been previously restricted. Obama and the Democrats launched a public awareness campaign to mobilize grassroots support. They held town halls, used social media, and enlisted the help of victims' families to press for action. The administration collaborated with gun control advocacy groups like Moms Demand Action and Every Town for Gun Safety, working to build a larger movement for gun reform. Despite overwhelming public support, around 90% of Americans supported expanded background checks. The Manchin-Toomey bill was blocked in the Senate in April of 2013. It failed to reach the 60-vote threshold necessary to overcome a Senate filibuster, failing 6 votes short, as many Republicans and some Democrats from conservative states opposed it. Politicians had once again put party over humanity, and the NRA won.
A few months ago, in response to too many tragedies, including the shootings of a United States Congresswoman, Gabby Gifford, who's here today, and the murder of 20 innocent school children and their teachers, this country took up the cause of protecting more of our people from gun violence. Families that know unspeakable grief summoned the courage to petition their elected leaders, not just to honor the memory of their children, but to protect the lives of all of our children. A few minutes ago, a minority in the United States Senate decided it wasn't worth it. They blocked common sense gun reforms, even while these families looked on from the Senate gallery.
While much of the nation was still outraged, this was an NRA spokeswoman gleefully explaining how they got the bill to be killed.
Okay, Stephanie Sanford, NRA spokesman.
Let's talk gun control at the federal level. What were your thoughts about the defeat of the Manchin-Toomey expanded background check agreement?
The NRA worked very hard to educate members of Congress and also educate our members as to the issues and what's going on at the federal level. And you can tell by the defeat of the Manchin-Toomey-Schumer amendment that our members came out and they called their elected officials. They wrote emails, they sent letters, and voiced their opinion on making sure that our lawmakers don't take away our Second Amendment right.
You notice how she says, so your lawmakers don't take away your Second Amendment right? This is a common deception from the NRA, because where in that 2013 bipartisan bill with a Republican and a Democrat does it talk about taking away guns in America? It does not say that. It calls for more common sense gun reform. In fact, President Obama's proposals would have been more progressive. It would have been more better for the bill. It would have been a more progressive bill. But for her to say that is a complete deception. I mean, the bill was literally endorsed by a gun rights group. So for the NRA to continue to come up with this excuse of, oh, you're going to take our guns away, you're going to take our rights away, and we're not going to stop. I mean, that is completely asinine and makes no explicable sense, but for the fact that you are a gun rights organization, and you seek to continue to hold conventions. You seek to continue to lobby congressional officials, even after the death of school children, to continue to oppose active, common sense gun rights legislation in this country, to reform the system. We have never said anything about taking away your guns. We're just calling for a more reformed approach with guns in this country, because we are the only nation on earth where this is a problem. And after Sandy Hook, where 20 children were killed and 7 adults, it was the common belief that if that could not wake Congress up, if that could not get Republicans to stand up to the NRA, then nothing would. And that is exactly what happened. Because a multitude, an amalgamation, a gargantuan number of mass shootings happened. And it continued, and it continued.
Mr. Jones, I'm going to hand you a copy of what I have marked as Exhibit 4. You ever seen that before?
I don't remember.
You're not sure if you've seen this before?
No.
Okay. You'll see up at the top it has a timestamp, 12/14/12.
Yes.
You know that's the date of Sandy Hook, right?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
Well, is that the date?
It is.
Okay.
It is, Mr. Jones. You will admit, I mean, you've done mocking imitations of Sandy Hook parents crying, correct?
No.
I want to play you a video clip, too, from September 24th, 2014 and November 11th, 2016. Will you play the video clip called Crying?
And then you've got parents laughing, going, and they walk over to the camera and go, and not just one, but a bunch of parents doing this. Then we see footage of one of the reported fathers of the victims, Robbie Parker, doing classic acting training where he's laughing and joking, and they say, hey, we're live. And he goes, oh. And maybe that's real. I'm sure it is.
What officials describe as a horrific scene is still unfolding at this hour inside a sprawling high school in Parkland, Florida.
Kids that are hurt, do you think that they're maybe dead? Yes. Okay. Are they all dead, or
one of them isn't? No. I took off my shoe, and then one of them got shot in the head, so I took off my shoe, and I applied pressure on his head and trying to stop.
The one that got shot in the head, hey, listen, the one that got shot in the head, are they passed away, yes or no?
No, he's not.
Since this movement began, people have asked me, do you think any change is going to come from this? Look around. We are the change.
6 minutes and 20 seconds with an AR-15. 17 of our friends were taken from us, 15 were injured, and everyone, absolutely everyone, in the Douglas community was forever altered.
Although it's been 38 days since the Parkland shooting, nothing has changed, and we need change now.
At this moment, please raise your hand if you have been affected by gun violence to honor the ones you have lost.
Enough is enough.
We are fighting. We, as students, as youths, decided that if adults weren't going to take action, we would. We've been fighting since Columbine, since Sandy Hook, since Pulse, since Las Vegas.
We've been fighting for this way too long, and nothing has changed.
Newtown wants change. Parkland wants change. The world wants change. Give it to us now.
Now.
We are a country that does not finish burying the dead from one mass shooting before we are drawn to another one.
My kids were so scared. I got in front of them because I had to protect my children.
A bullet came through the wall. It went in between Gillis and Stacy. It went past my arm and hit the table. We were quiet under the table. I was crying just a little bit. I was just scared because I thought he would like come in like our room and like shoot everybody.
In July of 2022, the United States House of Representatives narrowly passed a bill to ban assault weapons in the United States after the Uvalde massacre in Uvalde, Texas. 19 school children and 2 teachers were killed. That bill passed 217 to 213. Ultimately, it died in the Senate, and it was not successful.
Horror in Winder, Georgia, after officials say a suspected shooter opened fire in Appalachia High School.
There's a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder and he will be tried as an adult.
In Georgia, where that shooting took place, there are no gun laws. In fact, in 2017, Republicans in the state passed a bill making it easier for people to get guns on college campuses, effectively bringing them onto the campus without pause or restrictions. Also, in the district where this shooting happened, this is their happy pro-gun Republican congressman.
Georgians are sick and tired of weak-kneed, spineless politicians who won't fight for Trump, get to the bottom of 2020, and fix our elections. Well, if they won't do it, Mike Collins will. Send me to Washington. I'll fix this election. I'll get to the bottom of 2020, and I will fight for Trump's America First agenda.
Must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
I'm going to Washington to stop the Pelosi agenda, and you're not going to silence me. And it's time to fight back. And if you think I'm just going to fight the Democrats, think again. Because in the swamp, it's rhino season 2. Especially a limited federal government.
And he was sent to Washington. That is the Republican congressman in Georgia, Mike Collins. Yeah. He also goes on to talk about, essentially in his tweet, about how he's very sad to report on the death of 4 people at a school in Georgia. But he's also quick to say that not all of the injuries are gun-related. Like anybody asked. A tragedy happened at an American high school, and his first thing is to go to the fact that, yeah, but not everything is gun-related, so just wanted to throw that in there. The shooter in this case is 14-year-old Colton Gray. The gun he used to carry out the shooting was purchased by his father as a Christmas present. Only in America can you get an AR-15 for Christmas instead of, I don't know, like a laptop, a car, any other thoughtful gift, any other mindful, conceivable parent would give to a 14-year-old. An AR-15? Really? When you talk about parental liability in school shootings, the question essentially was first raised back in 1999 after the Columbine massacre. The focus then shifted to the shooter's parents, if they should be held responsible, perhaps arrested for their son's crimes.
Gloria?
Governor, has any thought been given to charging the parents of these students with any kind of a crime?
You know, some Jefferson County authorities have suggested that at least one set of parents should have known, given the evidence that was found in that killer's room. And I think that if that's true, if the parents are thought by authorities to reasonably have been expected to know, then the possibility of them being charged in some way is certainly very real.
With what would you charge them?
Well, if you, I'm not an attorney, but if you had adults who should have known what was going on, who failed to exercise care in a situation like this, they could be charged as accomplices just as other individuals could if they knew about it, failed to act.
That was back in 1999. Well, in the 21st century, we are starting to abide by that doctrine. In most recent school shootings, the parents of the shooter have been charged and arrested. The same happened in Georgia. The father and son were arrested without bail. But questions still do remain after reports indicate that the FBI had been surveilling 14-year-old Colton Gray since last year, and his mother reported to the school of the morning that a credible threat to the campus was instant and alerted them to find her son. We will see what happens as this investigation continues. But lastly, I wanted to say about 3 things here. And the first has to do with Donald Trump. In 2017, when he became president, the first thing on his legislative record as the new president was a law that made it easier for mentally ill people to buy guns. This regulation essentially was finalized in the Obama administration to prevent mentally ill people from getting weapons. After the Sandy Hook massacre, Trump rolled it back and said, nope, we want everyone to have guns. That was their priority, rolling back gun rights. The priority of the new Republican Congress at the time. And that's why it's no surprise that when these school shootings and mass shootings transpire, this is the response by the Republican nominee for president and his running mate, J.D. Vance.
It's a very terrible thing that happened, and it's just horrible to see that happening. That's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But we have to get over it. We have to move forward.
The Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. The states with strict gun laws, they have a lot of school shootings. And the states without strict gun laws, some of them have school shootings too. So clearly strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life.
In stark contrast, these are their opponents, in which the Democratic ticket is led by Vice President Kamala Harris, who supported the House's assault weapons ban after the Uvalde school shooting in 2022. That bill failed in the hyper-conservative Senate. This is Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz speaking on school shootings and gun reform in America.
And, you know, our hearts are with all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course. And we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all. You know, it doesn't have to be this way.
But you know what's not a fact of life? That our children need to be shot dead in schools. That's not a fact of life.
If you are looking for a glimmer of hope after seeing these heartbreaking headlines, maybe you can look to the NRA, the National Rifle Association. With an aggressive legal pursuit in recent years by New York Attorney General Letitia James and allegations of corruption and money schemes, maybe, just maybe, we can be one step closer by relieving ourselves of this epidemic in our country by removing the largest, the worst, the most vile, soulless corporation in America, the National Rifle Association. Our kids do not deserve to have their safety shattered. Fear of being shot in school, mindful if they're close to the door or not. We have to do better. We have to act. We have to save our kids. They cannot continue living in shattered safety.